Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Today, I want to jump into the conversation of what is cycle charting, why is it important, and how can we do it in a way that actually feels nourishing for our body and not just another to-do on this huge list of things we have to tend to. So cycle charting, there are so many different methods out there. And I think that's what I want to really share with you today is that all these methods that we're going to be exploring, they all have purpose. They all have powers or wisdom behind them if we utilize them. It doesn't mean that there is a better way or a best way. The best way is the way that makes us feel empowered. And that's really what this tool is. It's a way for us to feel empowered, for us to come into our body, to understand what's happening, and to really start to see the wisdom of our womb space and to see the wisdom of our cycle and to see how we can tap into this in a way that really helps us connect to self. So one of the first ways that we know of is charting our cycle through cervical mucus, cervical positioning, and through temperature. This is one that's talked a lot about in a lot of resources, a lot of books. It's what's taught for fertility and for pregnancy prevention for those that don't want to go on the birth control pill. It is a really great method to really understand your body, especially if there's imbalances in the body, especially if we are hoping to be able to understand how our body's working and operating and what are the messages or health indicators that are wanting to be shown. And so if you are working with a physician or a naturopathic doctor and trying to understand or diagnose something in your body, this is a really great method. But it is a lot of work. In my personal opinion, this has been a method that I have played with, but it felt a little too overwhelming. And overwhelming in the sense that I had to show up every day at the exact same time to do the exact same thing. And it just felt like too much for me. And it felt too much for me because it wasn't aligned with what I was looking for. I personally was not trying to diagnose anything. I was not trying to prevent pregnancy. Really, me doing it was just for curiosity purposes, for me trying to find a tool to connect with my body. And so it probably wasn't the most aligned method for me. But that's not to say that's not the aligned method for somebody else. This is a really powerful and potent tool. And there are so many great practitioners out there practicing this. And I can't emphasize that enough, that wherever you live, if this is something that you're interested in trying to understand physiologically what's happening in your body, go and seek out someone that can teach you this method and can definitely help you. A lot of what I like to teach is going beyond the physical body, going on beyond what the physical body is trying to iterate to us, what it's trying to tell us, going beyond health and trying to establish why something's happening. When I chart, I don't chart so that I can diagnose my body or that I can solve a problem. My intention behind cycle charting is really about creating this deeper connection with myself, coming into a relationship with myself, and then trying to use that information so that I can live cyclically, so that I can know where my strengths are, because I know what phase I'm in, know what I am most likely going to do with ease, like what tasks I can get done without a lot of effort. And then also understanding that if I'm being asked to do something else that's out of alignment with the phase that I'm in, of knowing why my reaction might be the reaction that I'm having. And so for me, charting has become a ritual. It has become this practice that I show up and do on a daily basis as a way to connect with my body, not as a way to gather information. So that's what we're going to explore today. Know that there's the other method of charting for temperature, mucus, positioning, which is all powerful. But today I want to dive into the ritual of getting to know yourself. So there are 3 different methods that I've kind of explored and played with and coached women on that I really do feel are easy to tend to on a daily basis, that are ways that help give us information and really provide deep connection. Now, you don't have to do all 3 of these ways. I give you 3 different ways as a way for you to pick what feels most aligned for you right now, and know that you might fluctuate through all 3 of these. I sure do. So the first method, which is probably the more time-consuming one out of the 3 of them, is charting how we feel as a journaling practice. And so the charting journal that I provide as a free handout that you're more than welcome to go download, it has the journaling prompts to connect with how you're feeling physically in your body. Like, what kind of physical indicators do you feel? Do you feel low back pain? Are you getting a headache? Are you feeling like energized in your body? Like you can go run a marathon right now. Like you just have all this potency of energy. Are you feeling really sleepy and tired? So how are we feeling physically? How are we feeling emotionally? Is there some big emotions coming up? How are we feeling spiritually? And then there's also room for us to have our gratitude practice, to write our affirmation. There's a lot of little prompts here, and it probably would only take you 3 to 5 minutes to journal each day, but it's a way for you to really tune into yourself and go, what am I feeling on all different planes of myself? What is the pattern that I'm seeing here? How am I wanting to show up today? And how can I really use that information and move through my day with ease? And then at the end of your 30 days or 28 days, however long your cycle is, there's an opportunity to go through all of those sheets and summarize, like, what were some key takeaways that you noticed through this cycle? What is something that you've now noticed as a pattern? What is one way that you're going to shift your behavior now that you've discovered this new information about yourself? So there's a little bit of prompting to help you deepen into the experience of understanding what is actually going on in all this tissue that makes up our body. Now, this method, it doesn't take long, but it's still a process. If you're a journaler, you're going to love this method. Personally, myself, journaling, I pop into and pop out of. It's not a consistent practice for me. I'm not a big lover of writing, but for some people, they love journaling every day. So this would be your method. The next 2 methods are way less time consuming and have way less effort to them, and are usually the 2 that I lean to the most. So the next one that we'll explore is the charting circle. The charting circle, I think, is the most brilliant idea for anyone out there who wants to learn about their cycle, doesn't have a lot of time, or doesn't feel like they want to invest a lot of time, but really wants to get to know themselves. They want to dive into this practice of understanding their body and understanding the 4 different seasons. So cycle charting is literally this big circle, and then inside that big circle, close to the middle, is 2 other little circles. In the larger portion of those pie pieces, like there's lines to make out 28 days in your circle chart, or 30 days, however long your cycle is. And in that pie shape, the bigger piece of the pie is where you would write 2 words of what you're feeling today, your 2-word check-in. 2-word check-ins are so incredibly powerful. It is putting language to what we're feeling. It's also probably one of the harder parts of charting your cycle, because we have not really been taught how to put words to how we're feeling. The words that we know is sad, happy, angry. Like, we know the key words, but those really don't describe sometimes how we're feeling. Sometimes we feel vibrant. We feel easeful. We feel abundant. We feel contentment. We feel energized. So there's so many words out there, but realistically, as children, we weren't taught a lot of these feeling words or how to describe the state that we're in. So the 2-word check-in can be really powerful because it does make you pause and go, what is it that I'm truly feeling? What are my 2 words, if I was to pick only 2, to describe how I am? And now you can make phrases. You can also just use 2 words. I notice for myself, it's usually around day 26, I crave chocolate. So day 26, almost every time I crave chocolate. It's those 2 days before the period comes, and I just want the darkest of dark chocolate, which is a sign, now that I know this, that my body wants magnesium desperately bad. And so rather than me going, oh, I'm eating unhealthy again, now when I start having that urge, and I always know day 26 is when that urge comes, when I'm sneaking into the pantry, I'm trying to find the chocolate chips because I have no chocolate in my house, and I indulge in it. It's just my body's way of going, you need some magnesium. You need some extra care right now because your body's about to go through a transition. It's really powerful when you can identify your patterns and identify the words that you're feeling. Now, that's the bigger pie pieces where you put your 2 words for each day. On the next circle right beside your 2 words is where you would put your cycle day. So are you on day 1? Are you on day 26? So this is how you chart what day of your cycle you're on. And then in the smaller, right towards the center, if you wanted to, you can put the date. So maybe it's January 1st, I'm on day 5, I'm feeling energized and awake, which is pretty common for coming out of your dark days of your period. So this is how we would chart for 28 days. Now, it may seem like, what's the purpose? This seems pretty simple. The purpose is that after doing this cycle chart for 3 months, if you were to lay them all out on the table, and you would look at your 2 words that are on day 3, and you look at your 2 words that are on day 10 and 12 and 18 and 28, you would start to notice that the words that you choose, if they're not exactly the same, they're pretty darn similar. And that can be such powerful information of knowing, whoa, this is happening every day on this day. So in month 4, now I'm going to just know that on day 26, I'm most likely going to feel this way. What can I do to really nourish that? Right? So let's say like day 28, this is a prime one for me. Day 28, even though I haven't started bleeding yet, I'm always so incredibly exhausted. Like I just feel so worn down. And it's really funny because often on day 28, I'm always like, am I getting a cold? My throat's a little sore. I feel really exhausted. My body aches. Right away, I automatically assume that I'm coming down with a head cold or the flu. And it always surprises me, and it shouldn't anymore, that the very next day I start bleeding. And then it's like, oh, no, my body was just trying to tell me you need to slow down. So now when I know I'm on day 28, I make sure that I put nothing on my schedule that's going to demand a lot of attention. It doesn't mean that I can escape life and nap all day or lay in bed all day. But what it does mean is that I'm not going to run and do errands. I'm not going to do things for other people. I have to set a boundary that, you know what, if I extend myself by doing stuff for everybody else today, what's going to happen is I'm going to be raging mad by the end of the day and I'm really going to be worn out. And then the next day, I'm going to be so exhausted, it's going to feel like I hit a brick wall. And so when we know our patterns, we can set ourselves up for success. And that is really the true power behind cyclical living, is that when we know this rhythm that we have, we can align our days so that way we're feeding whatever it is that is going on in our body that day. So we know like during menstruation, we need more rest. So we can feed and nourish that we need more rest or that we need more warm foods to just create this comfort in the body. We know that in our follicular phase, when we have this rising energy and we want to come rushing out of the gates, we know that we have lots of ideas. For me, in my follicular phase, I can get so full of ideas and so much inspiration and so much excitement because I just came out of this cocoon where my intuition was just potent and powerful that I want to get it all done. And I can feel I can get it all done. I can go 100 kilometers an hour during this time. But it's really important for me to know that when I'm talking with other people, that I have to like dial it back a bit. I have to bring it in a bit and know that they are not where I am today. And so me rattling off things really quickly to them might feel very overwhelming to them. And then if it's too overwhelming for them and they're not moving as quickly, or they're not responding the way that I was hoping or expecting them to respond, that's not them. That's my energy coming into a new potency. And I just have to like take a breath, take a hot moment and know that I'm at a vibrancy that's maybe beyond where they are. And so how can I meet that, right? Now with ovulation for me, every ovulation, I'm so wired to want to talk and to communicate, and I can sometimes stay up way too late. Like this is where I know that if I allow myself to be in front of a screen, if I'm working late, because this is often a time where I'm like, ooh, I got this idea, I'm going to work. And then before I know it, it's midnight and I'm still working. And then what happens is I can't fall asleep after that because I've been in front of a screen for too many hours in the evening and I just can't shut down. And it's not that I feel exhausted, but I also know that I'm going to be burning myself out for when I start to enter into my luteal phase or into my fall phase. And so in my fall, I also know that this is a time when I need to retreat inwards. I give myself permission to remove myself from social settings. It's really amazing that although fall is this inward thing, I know that when I'm in my fall, that there are certain friends that it's actually nourishing for me to go out for dinner with them. Not a group of them, one person. I feel like sometimes when I'm in my fall, going out with that one friend who just their energy is more grounding, more motherly, really like just this great listener, that I can go out for supper with them and my soul gets fed because I just feel like I'm being seen and I'm being held, and it's about a time to honor me. And so often when I'm in my fall, I will go out with certain friends one night out of that whole week, right? Like I don't do it every night, but I do it as a way to feed what I need in that moment to nourish my body. So this is the really cool thing about a 2-word check-in is that, and the cycle chart is that we can start to see patterns and then we know how to feed our soul, feed our emotional body, feed our physical body. We know what it needs. Now, life gets busy. And sometimes the 2-word check-in just does not work out. And I get that. There's often where I have charts where there's 3 days that are missing. And funny enough, the 3 days that are missing are always the same 3 days. It's like I want to avoid journaling. I'm too busy. I'm got too many things on the go that I just choose on those same 3 days every month, every cycle, just to skip it. So it's kind of fun to watch your own patterns that way. Are you wanting to understand your cycle better, to understand your rhythm, the language of your womb, and to really begin to connect deeper with your body? Then I invite you to go and grab my free charting journal. This is a charting journal to chart for both your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual self, to deeply connect to your womb wisdom and to understand how to live more in alignment with your energy, so that you can have more self-love, more compassion, and you can live your life to the fullest with so much pleasure, with so much fun, and with excitement. It is time for us to be empowered by our womb wisdom and by the language of our cycle. So hop on over to the link below in the show notes and grab your free copy of the Charting Journal today. So if you're somebody who's like, this still feels like it's too much work, this is the simplest way to chart. And it truly is still the most powerful way to chart, because this is bringing in the people in your home into your cycle and into your cyclical living. So the third way that you can chart is literally taking your calendar that you have, your monthly calendar that has, days 1 to 30, the month of May, right? Whenever you start your period on day 1, I like to choose 4 different colors of highlighters. So for my menstruation, I pick a pink because it's the closest that I have to red. I'm all about like associating colors with the theme of those seasons. So, I pick pink for my menstruation. For my inner spring, I usually pick a green color because grass is about to grow, plants are about to bloom. Summer, I always pick yellow because the sun is the brightest, it's warm. And then in the fall, I pick purple just because it's a really comforting color. And so what I do is on day 1 of my cycle, if it lands, let's say it lands on May 5th, I would take my highlighter and I would highlight pink across 7 days for 1 whole week. Then for my spring, I would use green and I would highlight a whole week. And then for my ovulation, I would highlight a whole week. And then on my luteal, I would highlight purple in a whole week. And this becomes a visual aid for you. Now, why I say a week, in case if I haven't mentioned this in previous podcasts, is for me, my cycle is 28 days. And for a lot of women, it's usually around that 28 to 30 days. What we want to do when we're doing cycle charting is to realize that we are not looking at physical indicators. So we're not looking at how many days you're actually bleeding. We're not just giving ovulation a 2 or 3 day window. We are giving more time for each of these seasons because we're not looking at the physical indicators. We're looking at the energetics of the body. So the energy that comes with ovulation, that energy is still really potent before the physical event of the egg releasing. So we want to give it a few days. The easiest way to do this is just take the length of your cycle and divide it by 4 because there's 4 different phases. So for some of us, that's going to be a full week. Maybe for some of us, that might be 8 days. Maybe for some, it might be 5 or 6 days. So just take whatever number your cycle is on average, divide it by 4, and that's how many days you would highlight on the calendar. Now, if it's an odd number, choose what season you think would need that extra day in it. You can just play with it. And as you start to chart your cycle, you're going to know your rhythm. I know that my fall phase, I don't actually start my winter on day 1. I start my winter on day 28. So the energy that comes with my winter season, that like retreating inwards, that hibernation, that slowing down, it happens the day before my bleed even starts. So once you get to know your body a bit more, then you can move this all around to try to figure out where your seasons most likely start to shift and change. You can refine it to your rhythm. But for ease, as we start to play with this and get into it, just do the simple math of day 1 to day 6 or 7 is your menstruation. And then the next week after that will be your spring. Next week after that is your summer. And just do week blocks, or like I said, whatever your math is, do that section. Now, the beautiful thing with this is that in that highlighted strip that you've created at the top of each day, if you want, you can write 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way through your cycle so that you know what day exactly you're on in that week, if that matters to you. And then this just becomes a visual aid. So for me, this is one that I use often, especially when I know that I have busy months like Christmas, when there's lots of birthdays happening, or when I just know that I have a lot on my plate with launching, that I will just use this chart. I will just use a calendar. The beautiful thing about it too is that this also gives my husband something visually to look at to know where I'm at in my cycle. And we will get into more conversations about relationships and cycles, but it can be really a powerful practice for your partner to understand where you're at. And so when we do this, when we highlight a calendar, it's as simple as when we wake up in the morning of just looking and going, okay, it's May 10th. Oh, I'm in the green zone now. How am I feeling? Yeah, you know what? I'm actually feeling like I'm a little bit more energized than I was yesterday. And then you go about your day. That's all it is. It's just you actually acknowledging that you've shifted into a different season, or that you were in this season and you are playing with it and you're embodying it and you're just really nourishing it. So it's not about journaling. It's not about 2-word check-ins. It's really about just having a visual aid to remind you of where you're at so that you can connect with how you're feeling. Or if something big happens and you're like, why did that happen? That was unexpected. Then you could be like, oh, well, it's because I'm in my fall. That's why that reaction happened. Or last minute, I just decided to say yes to going out with a bunch of friends and to this work event. And, it's very last minute and I don't feel any pressure by it. Oh, that's because I'm in my summer. I'm full of energy. I'm excited about doing these things. So we just get to know our body better and know why we're making the choices that we're making in these really quick moments and why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And I truly believe at the heart of all this work for us women, knowing why we feel the way we feel without judgment is what brings so much self-love and compassion. For me, the reason why I've kept up with charting, one of these 4 ways, has really been because it has been what has helped me come home to myself. You know, I was someone who used to beat herself up about being cranky in my fall. And now instead, my fall is my favorite season because I know how to nourish it. I know what my body needs. And I actually get really excited about, yes, the day is coming when I get to remove myself or when I get to say no. And I know that I'm saying no because it's going to make me feel better. And I'm way less grouchy. I'm way less reactive than what I was before because I know the why behind it. I know what my body needs and I can meet those needs because I've charted. I've charted one of these ways, even the simplest way, and was able to come into a relationship with myself. And so this is really what cyclical living is all about. How can we come home to who we are and really learn about our rhythm and why we're feeling the way we're feeling, and knowing that our feelings are a pattern. And the more that we can honor that, the more that those feelings are going to feel like medicine to us, are going to feel like guides to us, than something that is happening to us. And that there is the gold. That there is really why we're doing this work and showing up, is so that we can feel excited about every day, that we don't have to feel like we've failed or that we're not enough or, this keeps happening to me. Instead, it's like, no, this is where I'm at in my cycle. This is why I'm feeling this way and reacting this way. And it's not going to last forever. And it's okay for me to feel this way. It's okay for me to have, these dreams, these desires, these reactions, because this is where I'm at in my cycle. And I can use this as, information to guide my body and guide my mind and to make the best choices for me because it's aligned for me. And that's where inspiration comes through, is when we align our life to what actually is going on in our body and what we're feeling. We then get curious about so tomorrow I'm moving into the season. I wonder what I can do, how I can shift everything so that I can use all of this potency that this part of my cycle has to offer me. And then we get really inspired to shift our behaviors and to change the way we do things. And that's the magic. That's why we're here. That's why we are curious about our cycle, is because we want to feel better. We want to, explore life and know that everything we're feeling is part of the process, and everything that we're doing is part of the process, and who we are is, important and significant. And that's why we do this work. So I encourage you, pick one of these methods. Start off with the simplest maybe of just the calendar for the next month. And then start getting playful with can I check in? Can I just feel how I feel in my body and see if there's consistencies there? And let this be your guide to yourself. And if you want support on this, hop over into the Facebook group and we can continue this conversation and share our ahas of what we're learning about ourselves and our rhythm. Are you excited about aligning to your cycle? If so, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and like the episode if it really resonated with you. Until next time, remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living.